What's up, everybody? Nick Whalen, Alex Barutha here with you. It's the Monday edition of the RotoWire Fantasy Basketball Podcast. Unfortunately, we have injuries that we need to discuss off the top, Alex. Nothing new there. I got a couple of leagues where the IR designations are just, jumping out. Like I have like no bench in my RazJam league. I got like 5 guys who are injured right now. We of course added Franz Wagner to the list. We added Brandon Ingram to the list over the weekend. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk waiver wire. We'll talk about some players we're trying to buy and sell right now. And of course, we will get to as many questions as we can from the live chat. So keep throwing those in there. We always get great interaction. Really appreciate that. You guys make this easy for us, just feeding us great questions. But we'll start with Franz Wagner, Alex. We've talked a lot about Franz and the post-Banchero injury breakout. I believe he has basically the same injury now as Banchero, right?
He does, which is bizarre. Yeah, torn oblique. So at least we're pretty sure what the timetable is, although Banchero has not yet made his return yet. But weird that it is the same injury. Yes.
Yeah, no firm timetable quite yet. They're going to reevaluate Franz Wagner in 4 weeks. So, this is one where we're looking at a probably mid-January-ish reevaluation. Enough time, I would say, before the All-Star break that I wouldn't worry about the Chet Holmgren type of shutdown where it's like, okay, if you bring him back in late January, do you just give him the extra time? I would think, he'll hopefully be back. But in terms of what this means for Orlando, I mean, we saw Goga Bitadze continue to play well over the weekend. Obviously, they're starting him alongside Wendell Carter. Jonathan Isaac's a little bit banged up, but how much opportunity do we have here, especially with a weird schedule week with the NBA Cup before Paolo Banchero comes back and kind of resets things to where they would have been, when one of these guys are healthy?
Yeah, so I mean, part of it is like we don't know exactly when Banchero is going to come back. They have not given us like an update since they ruled him out for 4 to 6 weeks initially. Right. But yeah, last night, it was like, well, is this going to be, they're going to start Tristan da Silva? Is that going to be anything? Who's going to start taking the shots and like handle the ball on this team? Because they don't have that many playmakers. And we saw Jalen Suggs had a really nice game. Bitadze had a huge performance. But in terms of like guys you could realistically add off the waiver wire, Cole-Anthony had a pretty nice game. And if you're just talking about someone who could see more minutes and take more shots as this team tries to find a way to get to 100 points, Cole-Anthony might be that guy. He played 29 minutes, 14 points on 14 shots with 3 assists.
Yeah, I think that's a good call. Orlando is still able to pull off a win over Phoenix yesterday, catching in Phoenix, of course, without Kevin Durant. But I think still a quality win when your starting lineup is Da Silva, Carter, Bitadze, KCP, and Jalen Suggs. Obviously, Suggs is going to be rostered in most formats. I mean, I'm a Mo Wagner guy, reluctantly, in at least one of our leagues that we play in. He gives you a consistent 10 and 7. Maybe you'll get a steal and a block. He had 2 steals and a block last night. Usually give you, at least a couple of 3-point attempts. Hopefully he puts one of those in. So I think in deeper leagues, he could make some sense. I'm not really all that interested in Caleb Houston. He's seen minutes on and off the last couple of years, just not really a fantasy guy. Jet Howard, I know he had a couple steals and he will shoot when he's on the court, but I don't know if I'm quite ready for him. He'd have to be in a really deep league, I think, to consider Jet Howard. But yeah, I mean, you make a good point on Banchero in that we should be creeping up on the time that you think we'd find something out definitive here, but really unclear exactly when he's going to be back. But I think you laid it out well. I mean, I think Bitadze is going to be the guy that probably continues to benefit the most. I mean, just taking the shots out of the mix for Franz Wagner, like there's not an obvious inheritor of those. I guess it's to some degree Suggs, to some degree Cole-Anthony, but we saw Bitadze take 15 field goal attempts on Sunday night, which is a lot more than you typically see from him. Finished with 21, 16, and 4.
That 15 field goal attempts, as I go back, are his most. Is that the most of his career? Career high, as I go through every game log. Career high 15 field goal attempts for Bitadze. And yeah, it was kind of weird when Jamal Mosley decided to start him alongside Wendell Carter. Yeah, and I wish Wendell Carter would do something.
Anything.
But anything, please show us that you are actually not the worst center on this team. But yeah, I mean, if Bitadze's on your waiver wire, pick him up because it looks like he might just actually end up being fantasy relevant all season.
All right, let's go to the Pelicans. Believe it or not, we have an injury in New Orleans. This time it is Brandon Ingram, a low ankle sprain. This one got like the full insider treatment where it's like over the course of like 10 minutes, you and I, we subscribe to, various Twitter lists and whatnot. I got like 20 notifications, John's on it. The Yahoo guys are on it. Everybody's on it. It's like, all right, we understand he's dealing with a low ankle sprain. They're just saying he's out indefinitely. I mean, all the reporting around this has been like overwhelmingly negative. This is one, I mean, who knows? I would say at least the rest of the month, probably based on how they're talking about this. You would hope for a return sometime in January. The injury happened Saturday in their loss to the Oklahoma City Thunder. He, of course, did not play yesterday against the Spurs. And New Orleans is healthier overall. They're still without Zion. That's the big one. Jordan Hawkins working his way back. Jose Alvarado is out. But they do have Murray and McCollum back in the mix. Trey Murphy, Herb Jones. So despite this injury, it's probably the healthiest they've been all year.
I mean, the thing that stood out to me about the reporting was just how quickly they were like, he's out indefinitely. I'm like, well, like, what? Did this foot
get an
fall
MRI?
off?
It's like,
What
this is bad.
happened? Yeah. So if you have Ingram, like I do in multiple fantasy leagues, because I thought he was a good deal, like you can give him in the 70s or the 80s. I would just assume he's out a month. But you mentioned it. I mean, this team is getting healthier, so like Herb Jones and Trey Murphy are just going to step in and do more. And Maxey had a nice game the other day. This might be an opportunity to pick up Brandon Boston Jr. again if someone dropped him in your league, or maybe you even dropped him before. He had a pretty nice outing, shot really well. I don't know if the assists are going to be there like they were earlier because you have McCollum and Murray there, but I think those are the main guys.
Yeah, and Herb Jones has played pretty well since coming back. I know we only saw him for like 3.5 games at the start of the year and didn't really play well in any of those, but he scored at least 12 points in all 3 games since returning at 24 against OKC, the game that Ingram left, and he's given you 6 steals and 3 blocks in that span. So I know a bunch of people justifiably, especially in shallower leagues, dropped Herb Jones. He might still be out there if you're in a 10-teamer, so double check there. I know his roster percentage was really low when we did our waiver wire video this past Thursday, but yeah, man, I don't, this Pelican season just feels over. I mean, we talked a lot last year about the Grizzlies, and I think I said multiple times, like, this is the worst injury luck I've ever seen. I mean, the Pelicans are giving them a run for their money.
Oh, sorry, I'm muted.
Yeah, if you could just restate all that, that'd be ideal.
Well, this gives me time to do the check on how many guys they've actually started. Do you want to take a guess on how many players the Pelicans have started this season?
How many different players have started a game? I will say 17.
Not that far off. It's 14. 14 players have started a game for the Pelicans. 3 of those were Elfrid Payton, who is no longer on the team. Not in the NBA anymore, technically. This health look is really bad. The thing is that, I mean, they're a pretty deep team, so like they might actually be able to survive Ingram and Zion being out. I mean, they've survived Zion being out before. But some of this will be, I mean, DeJounte Murray just straight up has to start playing better. He's been really, really bad. And I think he will start playing better, but it hasn't been good so far.
We got a couple questions here on Karl-Anthony Towns that we'll hit real quickly. Any word on Karl-Anthony Towns? Is he coming back today? Is he doubtful? He's officially listed as questionable for tonight's game against Toronto, which is the only game on the NBA slate. Very weird schedule, obviously, with the NBA Cup. So make sure you familiarize yourself with your league's rules as far as how they handle that. But low volume game count for just about everybody this week. I think the goal, right, is every team plays 2 games.
That's what they're going to try to do. Trying to figure this out is a complete disaster. As far as I can really sum up for you, the Knicks probably have the best schedule spot of any team over the next week, essentially. Yeah. But it's still kind of unclear exactly what the games are going to be.
Yeah. Well, the Knicks are in the NBA Cup quarterfinals, so keep that in mind. Right. I don't know, it's hard to say how much they care about that or how much Tibbs cares about it, which is probably not at all. But if you're looking for, some sort of inkling on Towns, like maybe there'd be a little motivation to hold him out tonight if you want to make sure he's ready to go for that quarterfinal game. But as of right now, Karl-Anthony Towns is questionable, not doubtful. While we're talking Orlando here, Paul has a question. Should we drop Wendell Carter Jr.? Been watching Orlando games, and it clearly looks like Goga might have taken his spot.
I'm fine with dropping Wendell Carter. He just does nothing out there. I mean, he just really he showed flashes earlier in his career. I don't know what happened. He just can't play anymore. Is not part of the offense, is not a steals and blocks guy. Yeah, he's gonna get you some rebounds. You'll have the nice assist game, but like you said, it's just they're fine running out Mo Wagner for 20 minutes and Bitadze 25 minutes, and I think you can drop Carter.
Yeah, looking at that 2018 draft right now, just a kind of a really weird draft where you have, Ayton go 1 and not a bust, but obviously, should have been Luka, Bagley 2, then Luka, then Triple J, then Trae Young. Like, all right, 3 in a row. Those all hit. Mo Bamba, Wendell Carter, Colin Sexton, Kevin Knox. And then right after that, you have McCall Bridges, SGA, Miles Bridges. So that 6 through 9 zone just ended up being kind of a dangerous spot in the 2018 draft. But I'm with you, man. It's like, every time you drop Wendell Carter, then he'll have a week where you're like, oh, okay, maybe I shouldn't have done that. And then you pick it back up. And when he's in your lineup, he gives you like 6 points, 4 rebounds, maybe a block, maybe a 3-pointer. I mean, if I have the choice to roster him or Bitadze, I think it's got to be Bitadze. And even when Banchero's back, you're still going to be down Franz. That's a 35-minute per game guy in that front court. So I think Bitadze is going to give you more value. And I think it's going to be sustainable, for the next several weeks until both of those guys are back in the mix. In terms of the waiver wire this week, Alex, I was pretty quiet. I've been fairly aggressive, thanks in part to injuries early on, but I put in a claim for Grayson Allen in our 16-team league, came up a couple dollars short on that. Wasn't like a must-have, but need to make up a little bit of ground in terms of 3-pointers. I know you added a big addition from the New York Knicks in the stake league.
Well, we talked about the Knicks just a second ago, and they might have a good schedule spot. Precious Achiuwa, who Karl-Anthony Towns missed the other day, and Achiuwa stepped in, played 28 minutes, 6 points, 10 rebounds, 4 assists, a steal, and a block. I added him because, I mean, there's just the chance that Towns misses tonight's game. If they, maybe they're resting him for the NBA Cup. I'm sure the NBA would actually love that. But I think, I mean, we've talked about all season, the Knicks bench is really thin. And I think if you, which I've been saying, like you can roster Miles McBride in a standard 12-team league, just hoping that somebody gets hurt because the bench is so thin that he would step into a huge role. And I kind of feel the same way about Achiuwa, which is like, there's just not that many guys there. If Towns gets hurt, if Anunoby gets hurt, if Hart gets hurt, I think Achiuwa can step in and play some more minutes. But either way, he probably has a floor of like 15 to 20 minutes, hopefully, after he returned from injury. So it's a little bit of a gamble, but in a 16-team league with a schedule advantage, I think Achiuwa makes sense.
One of our good pals in the chat, Admiral Nita, has a question about the Pelicans here. He says, is there a case to perhaps buy low on Zion and Ingram, stash them on IR, and hope they either get healthy or get traded at some point? And if you are buying low, what kind of cost are we looking at? He's in a 12-team, 8-category league, but we'll just kind of look at this from a 1,000-foot view at first. Like, do you have any interest in executing this plan?
No, I don't think so. I don't think you can do it. To me, I don't trust Zion to stay healthy at all. Like if he plays 30 games the rest of the season total, I'd be like, wow, a miracle.
Yeah.
And Ingram, as Admiral Nita points out, a trade candidate. He's not going to get traded into a better situation than this, I don't think.
Yeah.
And the team is so bad. You're talking about tanking possibilities. Are they going to rush these guys back? No way. I mean, they have the most losses in the entire league right now.
Yeah, I don't think I would touch Zion. I think there's always this disconnect between Zion the player and Zion the fantasy asset, and it's not like we've talked about the same kind of question with Chet Holmgren, right? It's like, do I either try to buy or sell Chet, and maybe I can get him at a discount if the current manager really needs to make up ground. It's like that you could sell me on, because when Chet comes back, he could be a top 12 guy the rest of the year, whereas for one, with Zion, even when he's quote unquote back and healthy, it's like, all right, are you comfortable locking him into a weekly lineup? And do you think he's going to play every game? There's no way he's playing back to backs and all that. And he's like, the ceiling's just not that high, right? It's like, you're not getting this guy who could like completely change your season when he's healthy. You're getting a guy who's still going to be frustrating, who's still going to have off nights, who's still going to be a bad free throw shooter. He's not going to give you threes. So I wouldn't be interested in that with Zion. With Ingram, maybe you could sell me on it, because I think even if he is traded, he's still going to be a reliable, top 75-ish guy. And he doesn't have that same, hit or miss history as Zion. But honestly, I would, if somebody let somebody else deal with these issues. That would be my take.
100% agree.
I wanted to ask you about Jordan Poole. I did a video last week on some players that I would consider selling high on. I mentioned Nikola Vucevic. I mentioned John Collins. I mentioned Jakob Poeltl. And I mentioned Jordan Poole, who's played pretty well. Obviously, they've been without Malcolm Brogdon for a couple of games. But, Jordan Poole is still Jordan Poole. After going for 39 against the Nuggets the other night, Wizards snapped their losing streak. He promptly went for 9 points on 2 of 6 shooting in a blowout loss to the Memphis Grizzlies. This question is an interesting way to frame it from Kool-Aid Trippin'. He says, 9-cat, he's punting points. Would you give up Poole for TJ McConnell? I will say on the surface, that feels a little extreme, but are you looking to get off of Poole in general?
I'd be fine getting off of Poole. I had this bad game. It's hard to say how much to look into it because it's one bad game and he had been playing well. I would not give up Poole for McConnell, even if even if you're punting points, because Poole is still giving you decent assists and steals, and that's what you're getting out of McConnell. And I think it's pretty. You're asking this question when Poole is coming off the worst game of his season and McConnell's coming off the best game of his season. But I would just hang on to Poole. It's the role is too. He's got too high of a floor compared to McConnell. Even though I have McConnell in a lot of standard leagues, and it's been awesome. It just has been.
Yeah. I mean, in terms of what McConnell gives you, for talking categories, assists and steals, like, hey, Poole's giving you 5 assists a game. He's giving you 1.6 steals. Like the scoring and the efficiency are what tend to, go roller coaster game to game. So I think I would hold Poole. I know it's frustrating, but you're never going to have the 39-point game out of TJ McConnell. Like the ceiling games are still going to be there enough, I think, for Jordan Poole. Sticking with this theme of, guys we're either looking to sell or acquire. We got a couple questions, I think, that fit this. Alan asked, is Bub Carrington a hold, or is he somebody you're looking to pick up? He's in a 9-cat 14-team league.
I think Carrington at this point, I mean, that first of all, the Wizards are dealing with a ton of injuries, which is like part of the reason you're asking this question is because Brogdon missed time, Sars missed 2 games, Kispert's been out for 3, Keyshawn George out for 3, Kuzma out at 5+ games. So, Bub has started the past 2 and has played well, and he was playing fine before that. I think you can hold him, but I don't know if I would if I was low in the standings. To me, he's like a luxury stash where it's like if I'm top 3 in my league and I can just try to hold him to the end of the year and maybe he'll pop off and it gives me some insurance, sure. But if I need like real production right now, I don't really think Carrington's giving you anything more than you could just stream on any given week by just watching game counts.
How about Pascal Siakam? Would you keep Pascal Siakam or try to trade him? Asks our guy, Joe Bennett. He says, if you would trade, what type of guys would you target value-wise? But we'll tackle the first part first. Are you looking to hold Pascal Siakam if you have him, or is he somebody you try to get off of?
I think I'm holding him. I mean, in my opinion, he's giving me exactly what I thought he was going to coming into this season. And maybe like it's a little down compared to last season. But I mean, if you drafted him, let's say you drafted him 45th and now he's the 65th fantasy player, that's fine. That's fine. It's not really much of a difference. So to me, Siakam's just a hold.
Yeah, I mean, the volume is down a little bit. Percentages are about where they were last year. He's actually shooting it much better from 3, and his 3-point volume is up. He's just taking, about 2 fewer 2-point attempts per game, but, still hovering around 15 field goal attempts, which has been par for the course for him since he's been in Indy. Yeah, I wouldn't say it's been disappointing at all. If anything, I'm encouraged that he's taking more threes because it felt like second half of last year, he just stopped taking them. It was almost like DeRozan, like where, it had to be wide open or he just wasn't pulling the trigger. He's giving you 1.8 threes per game, which is his most since 2019. So I don't think nothing he's doing is unsustainable, I think is the way I would put it. So I wouldn't necessarily be making a point to get rid of him. We do have an interesting question though, with regards to a trade involving Siakam. Kendrick asks, should I give up Shai Gilgeous-Alexander for Maxey and Siakam?
I would not do this. I think Shai is just too good. He's just too good. I mean, you're giving up. He's, I think, 3rd in 8-cat right now. I understand the 2 for, like, there are situations where 2 for 1s are great. I don't think I'm trading a first round player, a top 5 player for 2, unless that 2 is like 2 bona fide second round. Like, you know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like if I would not trade Shea for anything less than like a healthy LaMelo Ball and Trae Young, basically. Like I'm just not going to do it. So I get where you're coming from asking about this, but I would just keep Shea.
Okay, we got another Siakam trade question from Victor. He says he's in a 10-team, 9-category league. His Cam Johnson and Pascal Siakam for Trae Young.
His Cam Johnson and Siakam for Trae Young. I think I'd do this. Yeah. Yeah, because, I mean, like people are clearly down on Siakam. I think it's fine. And Cam Johnson has played pretty well, but Cam Johnson also has a pretty lengthy injury history. He's also very sneaky, 28 years old. Does not really fit Brooklyn's like rebuilding timetable. Would not be surprised if he got traded into a worse situation. And Trae Young, I know the points are down, the efficiency is down, whatever. He's been so good as just a passer that I would rather have that side of the trade.
Yeah, I'm with you on that. I think, Cam Johnson, if you talk about somebody who's probably played above his level so far this year, it would be him. And he showed pretty encouraging flashes, I thought, early in his career, but he's playing a ton of minutes. He's taking a ton of shots. He's, shooting it really, really well from 3 and the field. And like you said, I mean, I think the Nets are just one of those teams that I think that on the one hand, there's plenty of opportunity because they don't have anybody, but at the same time, I don't really trust, who they're going to be playing, especially over the second half of the season. So, I think if you have an opportunity to get Trae Young, who's probably played, he's still like the 20th ranked player on the year in ACAT. And I wouldn't say it's been a fantastic year for Trae Young so far. I mean, the assists have been incredible, 12.2 assists per game, still giving you 21 points, but he's shooting 38% from the field, right? I mean, that it's not like he's ever been a 48% guy, but that should rise. So I would be looking to buy there if you could. We'll answer more questions in the chat as the show goes along. A lot more to talk about, but first, we got a message from our pals over at DraftKings Pick 6. Here at RotoWire, we're proud to be partnered up with DraftKings Pick 6 this NBA season. Think your team will score more than 100 points tonight? How about your favorite point guard making more than 4 3-pointers? Check out DraftKings Pick 6, the newest way to play fantasy basketball and win cash with DraftKings. Here's how it works. All you got to do is pick 2 to 6 players of the same sport and choose if they'll have more or less of a given stat. So for hoops, we're talking points, assists, rebounds, etc. Lock in those picks, compete against opponents for your shot at huge cash prizes. Go download the new DraftKings Pick 6 app right now and use our code ROTOPICK, ROTOPICK. That's code ROTOPICK for new Pick 6 customers. Play $5, get $50 in Pick 6 credits guaranteed. Gambling problem? Call 1-800-GAMBLER. Help is available for problem gambling. Call 888-789-7777 or visit ccpg.org in Connecticut. Must be 18 plus. Age and eligibility restrictions vary by jurisdiction. Pick 6 not available everywhere, including New York and Ontario. Void where prohibited. 1 per new customer. Bonus awarded as non-withdrawable Pick 6 credits that expire in 30 days. Limited time offer. See terms at pick6.draftkings.com/promos. Let's talk some LeBron James here, Alex. Lakers forward LeBron James, NBA veteran, father of 3. Jeremy says he got offered a trade, his LeBron and Nicholas Claxton for Tyrese Maxey and Devin Booker. Yeah, take this one.
Yes, sir. Yes, please take that trade. I don't care. I don't even care what kind of league it is. I just take that trade. I mean, LeBron, let's say, even if LeBron bounced back or just stayed where he is right now in terms of his season-long averages, which are 23, 9, and 8. Claxton has just been so inconsistent. I know he had a nice game against the Bucks. Maxey and Booker, I mean, these are 2 all-star caliber players, really high usage floors. Maxey, you could argue he actually plays better when Embiid is around, right? But Embiid and Paul George are not healthy in general. KD is hurt right now. Beal is going to get hurt. Again, Booker's going to have to take over. I would Maxey and Booker for sure.
I want to ask you about Kelly Olynyk, Alex. He made his debut over the weekend on Saturday, played 14 minutes off the bench, just dipping his toes into the water, first game of the season. Yeah, Jakob Poeltl still played pretty well. Still played 34 minutes, was in the starting lineup, 27-7 with 2 steals. I mentioned earlier he was somebody that I would try to get off of because things have been a little too good with Jakob Poeltl for the last month or so. But how much do you ultimately see Kelly Olynyk trimming into his workload? Are you interested in grabbing Olynyk as a bench piece, in some leagues?
I am, yes. He took all of Chris Boucher's minutes. Gone.
Amazing that Chris Boucher is still on this roster, by the way. It was like 7 years ago we were like really fired up about Chris Boucher.
Boucher's minutes just vapor in the grand scheme of everything. Yeah, I mean, Boucher was playing 18 minutes, right? Maybe Olynyk's 18 to 20 minutes, and then I could see him taking like maybe 5 minutes a game from Jakob Poeltl because this Raptors team, I know they're 7-17, but they just got Scotty Barnes back like I think it was like 8 games ago or something, and they played pretty well at home. They're not really going to compete in the East, but if they're not really also that far out of the play-in, and Quickly's going to come back at some point. So I don't exactly know what their plans are, but I think there's a pretty good chance Olynyk plays between 20 to 25 minutes in a lot of games. And if that's the case, he's a 12-team streamer and maybe just a straight up ad as someone to keep on your bench for when he plays 4 games. But put him on your watch list. Yeah. That's for sure.
Yeah. Scotty Barnes, by the way, has played really well since being fully ramped up. His last 8 games, he's averaging 23-9 or 23-10-9, I should say, with 1 steal and 1 block. If you like me, where I have him at punt take free throw percentage, I mean, he's basically a first round value. If you take that out of the equation and drop it to a 7-cat league, he becomes the 12th most valuable player on the year. So he's been great for them. Feels like their floor has been raised since he came back. They're no longer just getting slammed night to night. I know they got blown out by OKC on Thursday, but
so does everybody.
OKC. Yeah, right. But yeah, they've become kind of a fun team to watch. Obviously, Quickly still coming back at some point. There was another Raptors question here. Bruce Brown, is he worth stashing in a roto league? I would say no. I've never really got it with Bruce Brown, to be honest.
I don't know. I mean, I think if you want to play this out, like whose minutes is he taking? And I guess you could say like, well, okay, first of all, Emmanuel Quickly is going to come back. So then it's like, okay, well, Emmanuel Quickly is going to take Davion Mitchell and Jacoby Walters minutes, and then there's like 12 available, and maybe Bruce Brown slides into that. I just don't really see it. I would drop Brown.
Yeah, I mean, hasn't even played in a game yet this year. Could be a ramp up period. I thought he was pretty disappointing last year, right? Like, coming after the Denver year, where he was really good in Denver. It was like, oh man, Indiana, they brought him in. They're going to play him more minutes. He's going to be super important. And he averaged like, 10, 4, and 3. The defensive production went down. That's really what you were after with him. I felt like more than anything was, feel like you could lock in 1.1, 1.2 steals. He gives you blocks, but that has to be there so consistently, I think, for him to make sense. So, maybe in a deeper league, I would look at it, but I don't like the way I would say it. I don't think you have to stash him. I don't think anybody else is like, oh man, got to go grab Bruce Brown right now. No. I think wait and see where he settles in the rotation. James also asks, what do you guys think about Vassell and Rozier, as well as Bilal Coulibaly rest of season? I have them all in a 14-team roto league. I complain to you via text or Slack or Twitter or Blue Sky just about every night about Terry Rozier. Yeah. He's coming off the bench. He still finds ways, I feel like, most nights to be like, all right, he could be your last starter, in a 16-team league where I have him. But this has been a pretty big fall off. I mean, you look at his last 8 games. He missed a couple of games in mid-November. And since coming back, he's averaging 11 points, 3 rebounds, 2.3 assists, 0.1 steals, 0.4 blocks. I mean, he still takes a decent amount of threes, give you 1 or 2 threes a night, but he's not the same player, or at least not being used the same way.
In a 14-teamer, it is hard to drop him, but I think you can, because if you look at his final year in Charlotte, the 30 games he played in Charlotte last year, he had a 29% usage rate, and that's the assists plus turnovers plus shots usage rate, the playmaker usage rate. When he got to Miami after the trade, it was 26%. And this year it is 20%. So he's just not involved. It's not even that he's shooting that badly, just not involved from a usage or a minute standpoint. And maybe the minutes increase. I just don't see it. I think you can, again, like I said I don't remember who I was talking about. You could drop him and find similar production or better production streaming guys off the waiver wire on 4-game weeks.
Unfortunately, I can confirm you are correct. I think it'll take an injury. If Butler misses extended time, if Hero misses extended time, then he's back in. But I think until that happens, I don't know, man. I don't know.
Butler did miss time, and Hawk has missed time. Yeah. I mean, they've already had guys miss time, which is part of the problem. But I get what you're saying. Like extended, then Rozier is going to have to. But
I think the way I would phrase it too is the floor is way lower than it's been in years past.
Oh yeah,
way lower. He scored 0 points the other night against Phoenix in 16 minutes. It's like playing 16 minutes, scoring 0 points. Like that didn't really happen to Terry Rozier in the past. He would have down games, but it would be a poor shooting night. It wouldn't just be, he was only out there for a quarter of the game. So yeah, it's dire right now. I traded him basically for Buddy Hield, in one league, and neither of those guys have been great since. It was kind of a my problem for your problem type of trade. And I think we somehow both lost the trade. We got a question here from Joe. He says, "Is there any guy on the waiver wire you have your eye on when he comes back from injury?" He's in a 16-team league, so it is slim pickings as far as players who may be available. We certainly empathize with that. I'm looking at the list of guys available right now in our 16-team league. Does anybody jump out?
I have one name, and it's because I actually was stashing him in our 16-team league.
Where are we going
Max
here?
Strus.
Yes.
Yeah. I wish we would get some information, like real information. He has been ramping up in the G League, but I would say him. My only concern is Cleveland is playing just so well without him that they really have no incentive to just throw him back in the fire and potentially disrupt the rotation. So it could be a small or a long ramp up, but Strus is on that list for your league.
Yeah, I mean, I would throw out Corey Kispert as well. He hasn't missed as much time, obviously, as Strus. Similar type of player. I mean, you're really just in it for the threes, but in a 16-team league, that's kind of the market right now. Yeah, other than that, I mean, obviously guys like, Grant Williams, Taylor Hendricks, DeAnthony Melton, they're all out for the year, so they're not considerations. I mean, Bojan Bogdanovic, at some point, I worry about the general netsness of all that.
I mean, I'm double checking on this because Najee Marshall is available in our league and had been playing well.
Yeah.
So he's someone to consider as well.
Yeah, I think some of that did coincide with Luka missing like a week, right?
It did, but if you're just talking about a guy who can just kind of give you a random just spattering of box score stats and was playing like 20 minutes a game, which in a 16-team league kind of does it for you. I would watch list him as well.
Yeah, that's really about it. I mean, if you want to throw another shooter out there, I know Luke Kennard has missed a bunch of games in a row, but I'm just not really that interested. The other guys who are out long term are big name guys, who are certainly not going to be available. The Franzes and the Bancheros and the Holmgrens of the world. So that's kind of all we got in a 16-team league. It's going to be pretty bleak out there. James did say, how about Jordan Hawkins? I know he's not available in our league, but that's not a bad one.
I mean, I don't even know what this means, but when the medical staff says someone had been diagnosed with a lumbar spine annular fissure, I am first of all going to Google and being concerned. Apparently, that is a crack in the annulus fibrosus, the outer layer of a spinal disc.
Sure.
He's going to be reevaluated soon, but I don't know, man. If you got a crack in the disc of your spine, I don't know how soon you're coming back and playing NBA basketball. We might need like a Jeff Stotts update on this. If you want a potential stash, but I would not bank on this, especially because with DeJounte and McCollum there, I just don't think the minutes are even realistically there for Hawkins.
Adam Hurley suggests buy Gabe Vincent. Very mature. We know Gabe Vincent is very bad. Just a horrendous pickup by the Lakers last summer. I don't want to get into that. Would you drop Jaden Ivey and pick up Miles McBride?
No,
me neither. I guess if you're really placing a high priority on threes and free throw percentage, maybe, but like McBride doesn't take enough free throws that it really matters. I think Ivey's a significantly better player.
He is. Yeah, the floor is just so high on Ivey. I mean, he's
Mhm.
effectively their second option.
Cole asks, should I trade Sabonis and DeRozan for Giannis?
I would not do that. I think Sabonis and Giannis are close enough in fantasy, regardless of format, to where I would not throw in DeRozan to try to get Giannis. I would ask for that trade straight up.
Yeah, I think that's a good way to look at it. Or, try to go down in value on the DeRozan piece. If you could find a less appealing sweetener there, I think that would be the move. Alan asks, any update on Kelly Oubre for the Philadelphia 76ers? Injured his arm yesterday. That's the last update we've received. I'm not really sure what's going on there. He has not staged any car accidents to my knowledge so far this season, so that is a mark in his favor. But as far as what we've seen, I've seen no update, in the last 18 hours or so on Oubre.
No, same here.
Do I drop Shaedon Sharpe to pick up Bilal Coulibaly in a 9-category league?
I would say only if you need defense. If you don't need defense, I would not do this. I know Coulibaly had a bounce back game yesterday. He had been shooting so badly. Very, very badly. Been shooting like 30% for like 10, 15 games. No, I mean, again, if you need defense, yes. If you don't, no, because I think part of it with Coulibaly and the reason people want to hold on is, I mean, not only because he played so well at the beginning, but also because of post-trade deadline Wizards. I mean, it could be the Coulibaly show, right?
Yeah.
But in Portland, it could also end up being the Shaedon Sharpe show. So
sure could be.
I would rather have Sharpe.
We have a quick follow-up on the Ivey McBride question. Would you drop Russell Westbrook to pick up Miles McBride?
I would think about that. I mean, I don't know. I think that's kind of a wash.
Depends how much you need threes for me, because that's the big category difference between these two guys. I mean, Russ is going to give you more counting stats. He's going to give you a more volatile field goal percentage for sure. He's also, I mean, he's been racking up a bunch of steals over the last few weeks, so it depends how much that matters to you as well. I mean, he's at 1.8 steals over his last 10.
I think I would just rather have Westbrook. He's just given you he's just more involved, as weird as that is to say. And like Nick said, it may not be consistent, but he's just going to pop in some area. Like, oh, he'll have 1 rebound, but then it's like, well, 11 assists, 2 steals, and a block. Or he'll have like 3 assists, but then it's like, well, he had 27 points. So, yeah.
Okay, we'll hit a few more on the way out here. Do I drop Colin Sexton to pick up Onyeka Okongwu in a 12-teamer?
2 of the more frustrating guys in fantasy, because if they were to get 30 or 35 minutes, they would be like so clearly must roster, but they just can't really break that 25-minute threshold with real consistency. I would say that is entirely dependent on like whether you need rebounds and blocks or if you need points and assists. Like if you're in a points league, I think I would just rather have Sexton, but it's close.
Yeah, Okongwu last year, he played 12 games in which he saw at least 30 minutes and averaged 16 points, 9 rebounds, almost 2 blocks per game, 66% from the field, gave you over a 3-pointer per game. I'm not saying I'm hoping for a Clint Capella injury, but if that were to ever happen, the Onyeka Okongwu takeoff will be happening. So I'm still holding Okongwu in a bunch of leagues. Like I don't know. They could trade Capella at some point. I've been saying that for years, and they still haven't done it. But I don't know. I would favor Okongwu just because I think there's a path to upside at least for him. Whereas like with Sexton, they could play him more minutes and they simply choose not to. Like Okongwu is clearly blocked by another player. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Yes. 100%.
All right. I love these questions. A was I fleeced in this trade question from OG Too Much 78. He says, I traded I traded James Harden and Brandon Miller for Luka Doncic. Was I fleeced?
More than likely, I think you lose that trade. If it's a shallower league, I think you're probably fine because there'll be enough waiver wire options. You'll be able to find that production elsewhere. But if you're asking me what side I would rather have, it's the Harden and Brandon Miller side.
Yeah. Yeah, it's you got Luka's. I don't know if it's possible to get totally fleeced if you're acquiring Luka Doncic. But I mean Harden's been awesome, and I think there's room for his field goal percentage to grow significantly. And obviously Brandon Miller's been great as well. So yeah, I would rather have the two side of this one. Torrey Thompson 870 says Kyrie, Michael Porter Jr., and Jimmy Butler for James Harden and Jaylen Brown. Who wins the trade?
I think I would rather have Harden and Jaylen Brown, but I think that is actually a pretty even trade. I think that's a pretty fair trade.
Yeah. I think that's a tough one for me. I mean, Butler just being so unreliable week to week, I think kind of throws this one out. Like if you could lock in Jimmy Butler 75 games, I would rather have that side, but he's just like the frustrating swing piece in this.
I mean, this does feel like, hey, I have 3 guys who I don't really trust to stay healthy. And can I trade them to you for Harden, who's playing out of his mind? Actually, or I mean, I won't say playing out of his mind because you mentioned his field goal percentage issues, but just 2 more reliable guys. So that trade, I think, is eye of the beholder.
Mm-hmm. We'll hit this one quick. We touched on Wendell Carter at the start of the show. The question is basically, is he a drop in a 10-team league? Yeah. In a 10-teamer, you can do significantly better than Carter. If you get into 14 or 16, maybe that's different, but you should drop him in a 10. Is now the time to offer Jokic for Wembanyama in a dynasty league?
It's now the time to offer Joker for Wembanyama.
Yeah.
I'll say yes, first of all. Yes. 2, if I had Victor Wembanyama, I'm not trading him for anybody in Dynasty. It's just that simple. You could offer me Jokic and LaMelo, and I'd be like, nah, I don't think so, actually. So, yes, but also I'd do it. Good luck.
Okay, we got a Jalen Williams question. If we get a Jalen Williams question, we have to answer. We have the Jalen Williams expert on the show here. From Matt Carmody, he says Scotty Barnes and Malik Monk, or Jalen Williams and Drew Holiday. We'll assume this is Drew Holiday, not Justin Holiday. 9-cat head-to-head.
Interesting. Well, part of this trade is that I don't even know if you have to roster Drew Holiday in a 9-cat standard league.
Yeah.
But Jalen Williams is playing out of his mind. I think maybe things normalize a little bit, and Jalen Williams and Scotty Barnes end up pretty close in terms of like final value. Although Scotty Barnes really hasn't been playing with quickly there either. Although Chet's going to come back for OKC, etc. I think I would still rather have the Jalen Williams side of this trade. It's close though, because if Monk's going to start and play 30 minutes every night, you're going to have to roster him in fantasy. But is he going to be like a top 100 player? I don't know.
Okay, we'll do a couple more and then we'll be out of here. How tight should we hold the Time Lord in a 12-team, 9-category league head-to-head with keepers?
12-team, 9-cat head-to-head with keepers. I don't think he's a keeper. I'll put it that way. I just don't. He's too injury prone. You almost have to take it game by game, not season by season. And I think he, at this point, is a luxury stash in a standard league. He's going to come back from his concussion. Donovan Clingan's still going to be out. He's going to get back up minutes behind Ayton. Maybe 8 gets hurt, maybe he doesn't. But if you're at near the bottom of the standings, and you just need production, you can drop him. Someone's going to pick him up immediately. They just will. But if you need points, if you need production, you need production. There's nothing you can really do about it.
Getting a lot of Kings trade questions here. Cole says, should I do Sabonis and DeRozan for Wembanyama in a points league?
Sabonis and DeRozan for points leagues are tough because at some point you can just kind of add the numbers up.
Yeah.
But
Sabonis and DeRozan, I think, give you more than Wemby.
Oh, for sure.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I mean, Wemby's better in a category league anyway. I think if you had the DeRozan Sabonis side of this trade, that'd be fine.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I would rather have that. I mean, Wembanyama obviously has been great, but I think we thought he could perhaps be where Jokic is right now, which is like lapping the field in terms of fantasy points per game. And Wembanyama is in that second tier, but he's not really exceeding what Giannis, Luka, AD are giving you. Sabonis isn't that far behind.
No, he's only averaging 6 more fantasy points than Sabonis. So you're getting 6 more fantasy points per game plus the extra 35 to 40 from DeRozan every night. You probably just 2 for 1. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. We'll do 2 more here. Jimmy Butler and Lauri Markkanen for Devin Booker. This is tough.
Yeah, because I mean, part of me is like, I don't even want to roster Larry Markin, but that's not a realistic opinion to have. It's just like I don't want this guy at all. Jimmy and Lauri for Booker. If Jimmy Butler and Lauri Markkanen have like decent rest of seasons, I think that side probably wins, but I don't trust them to do that. So I think I'm taking the Booker side of this, to be honest.
Okay. All right. Second to last question is, should I trade Tari Eason for Malik Monk? 2 very different players, but 2 effective players.
Yeah. So, I mean, just to touch on the Malik Monk thing a little bit more, because I didn't even really rattle off his stats. So he started the past 5 games, 19.6 assists, 47% shooting. Maybe that decreases a little bit, but he's been pretty efficient throughout, most of his time with the Kings. And that's 35 fantasy points. And then Eason, again, I love Eason. He is more of a category leagues guy than a points league guy. His minutes are not as consistent as you'd want them to be. I think I would rather have Monk here, but it's close. I just take Monk. It's way more consistent.
The one thing I would say on this, and this could just look really dumb like 2 months from now, but I was pretty high on Devin Carter, the rookie out of Providence, and he got hurt basically right after the draft. I don't know if he even played in summer league. They're thinking he could come back in January. I don't know. It might just be a situation where he's missed so much time that this turns into a redshirt year. But in theory, kind of a guy who does similar things to Malik Monk. So maybe he cuts into his workload at some point. But just something to keep an eye on more than anything else. I'm not sure it'll really impact Malik Monk, but something to consider. We'll end on this one. Good question from John. And I think this goes hand in hand with a lot of what we've talked about on the show. Should I trade Brandon Ingram and Jamal Murray for Chet Holmgren? I'm currently in 2nd out of 12 in my league, and this would certainly bolster my playoff roster.
I got no problems with that trade.
Yeah, I think this is kind of exactly the type of trade that I would try to make. You're in a good spot already. You are getting off of Brandon Ingram, who's going to miss who knows how much time, at least several weeks and maybe more. Murray's been pretty anemic, hit or miss, not a good enough player to me where I would feel like, oh man, I'm really going to miss Jamal Murray. You would take a short-term hit. Hopefully you have somebody on your bench or a couple players on your bench that you could kind of, basically fill the Murray spot because you're going to be without Ingram no matter what. But because you're in 2nd place, like I think this makes a lot of sense, right? I mean, you could fall, maybe you fall 2 or 3 spots over the next month or so, but Holmgren is the type of player, unlike Zion, who is so good when healthy that in theory you should be able to make that up at the end of the year. It's the only real gamble here is how much time does Chet miss.
I was just about to go there. If you're trading for Chet, do not assume he's going to be back before the All-Star break, because they gave him 8 to 10 weeks before his return to play protocol. And that's like late January at the earliest. And I mean, if you just think about it from OKC's perspective, they're still playing out of their minds. I mean, they're still at the top of the West with a bullet.
Yeah.
You just give them the extra time. So that's the only thing where just don't expect to have Holmgren until mid to late February.
All right. We got to squeeze one more in here. Apparently I missed one from Brian. 10 team 9 cat head to head. Who should I drop? He wants to pick up Dosunmu and Shaedon Sharpe. So need to drop 2 of these players: Keontae George, Jared McCain, Derek Lively, or Herb Jones.
I think McCain, as much I hate to say it, but I think McCain has to be one of them. His past 5 games, 13 points, 2 dimes, and he's doing that on 50% shooting. Paul George and Embiid being backs, cutting into things. Lively and Herb Jones, that's kind of an interesting one.
Yeah.
I think that's a toss-up based on what you need. So if you need some threes and defense, like well-rounded defense, like steals and blocks combined, I would go Herb Jones, who probably also has more offensive upside just to score like 20 points on any given night. But if you're desperate for rebounds specifically and field goal percentage, I would go Lively.
Yeah, I think you laid that out well. I think if you need me to break the tie, I would say I'd rather have Herb Jones, just because I think with all the injuries, with Ingram out, there's a little more upside there. And then, what about Keontae George? It's kind of the same as last year, where you're getting 16 points a game. You're getting 5-6 assists. The steals have not taken the jump that we hoped. He's at 0.8 for the year, and he's shooting almost the exact same percentages across the board. 33% from three, 82% at the line, 39% from the field.
I mean, he had like a terrible October, but since then he has been significantly better. Like after October, so 17 November and December games, 17 points and 6 assists on 43% shooting. That's great. Mm-hmm. That's all when you drafted Keontae George, that's all you needed and wanted. So I'm completely fine with that.
All right. There we have it. We'll wrap it there. Great questions, as always, everybody. We appreciate you continuing to put those in the chat. We'll keep doing this every week throughout the NBA season. I'll be back tomorrow morning, 9:30 a.m. Central, 10:30 Eastern, with Brandon Kravitz. We'll have Kirian Sprecher and Mike Barner on Wednesday. We'll have Alex, Ken, and Shannon talking waiver wire on Friday. Want to thank DraftKings Pick 6. Want to thank you guys. Make sure you're subscribed, of course, to the RotoWire Fantasy Basketball YouTube channel. You can find all of our podcasts, all of our videos there, live and archived. And if you're enjoying what you're seeing here, make sure, as I bump the computer, please make sure you give the video a like as well. And by the way, go check out rotowire.com/pod. You see it on the screen right there. Free access to everything on our site, rotowire.com/pod.